All right. So, welcome to A Taste of Thanks, our weekly foray into the halachos, into the Jewish law and the legal proceedings of how and when and how often to make a bracha. So a bracha can be made, a blessing can be made on your food, a blessing can be made on your... The Rabbi gave a whole sermon about blessings this past week. It was very interesting. A blessing can be made on food, a blessing can be made on a mitzvah, a blessing can be made on a situation, on seeing something in nature. Thank you, Anna, for breakfast. Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
But we have been in the middle of trying to figure out when you make a new bracha, right? So when does the current bracha that you made cut off, and now you need to make a new bracha? So it's like a reset, and you got to make a new bracha. So we discussed the concept of hesach hadas. Hesach hadas means distraction, or a decision to stop eating, as they put it in the book. And we discussed that there are going to be many different factors that are going to play into hesach hadas. Right? You guys remember this? There's an inclusive intention, there's an exclusive intention, right? You have a plate with a whole bunch of food on it, etc. That's what we discussed last week. Today we're on page 175 in our books. And we are going to talk about when you have a decision to stop eating. So let's say you figure out what the bracha includes and what it excludes. Okay, that's what we discussed last week. You have a plate of food. I think we picked on Chanarina last week, all the different foods that she had on her plate. Right? Whether the bracha covers everything or it doesn't. And now you've made your brachos in the middle of your meal. And now you're going to decide that you're done your meal. Whatever it is, right? A meal or a snack, whatever. You decide you're done. And now you're going to decide to have more. So there's been a break in your intention, so to speak. Everybody with me here? So you're eating, you say, I'm done eating. Maybe you even make an after blessing, for example, would be the greatest interruption, right? And then you're going to have another snack. So in most situations, you'll need to make a new bracha. But it's going to depend on what type of decision to stop eating there is. Okay, so Larry, if you can get us started on page 175.
Not on time.
What?
Not on time.
Right now we're not discussing time. It could be even 10 seconds later. But there's been a change of mind.
Yeah.
Let's see. Larry.
Okay, we have seen in section 1 that one has power to designate whether the scope of his bracha should be inclusive or exclusive. Similarly, one has the prerogative to terminate the effectiveness of his bracha by deciding that he wishes to eat no more. The decision is called
Hesach hadas.
hadas, literally a diversion of the mind. Should he subsequently decide to eat again, a new bracha is required. Hazal, however, were reluctant to accept such a decision at face value.
Like, it's not so simple, basically. Often
a person may superficially decide to stop eating, while in reality, were he given the incentive or opportunity, he would readily continue eating. Given their thorough understanding of human nature, Hazal and Poskin judge when a person is sincere and realistic in his decision to stop eating and when he is not.
So not always is a decision to stop eating really a decision to stop eating. Basically, they know human beings. You say you're all done with the chips, but then you have another one. You say this is the last cookie, but then there's another one after that, right? So basically they decided we can't just rely on a person's intention. We also have to have certain factors in mind. Joyce, if you can read some of them for us. In evaluating Hesach hadas. There you go.
Poskin considered the following factors.
Number one.
At the time of Hesach hadas, how did one demonstrate his Hesach hadas? Did he perform a physical act? Did he express it verbally or only note it mentally? A physical action constitutes a more definitive Hesach hadas than a mere decision to stop eating.
Right? 1 second. Before we go to the next one. Has anybody ever seen this move? Let's say there's a plate of cookies, right? It's sitting here. You have a cookie, and you have another cookie, and then you do this. Mm-hmm. Why do we do that? Why can't we just decide in our head, I'm done with the cookies? Right? Why do we go, Why? Because when you express what you have in your mind, either verbally or physically, things change. In Kabbalistic terms, for example, there are 3 realms. There's the realm of thought, the realm of speech, and the realm of action. Yes? Machshava, dibur, and maisa. The realm of machshava, the realm of thought, it's definitely a real thing. Thinking something is a real thing. But because thoughts are so internal to who we are and nobody else is aware of them, therefore we don't hold ourselves accountable to it as much. Right? For example, if I think in my head, I'm starting my diet on Sunday, right? and then I decide tomorrow that I'm not starting my diet on Sunday because I don't have that much mental fortitude, not that big a deal. I'll change my mind very easily. But if I said it out loud to all of you, I'm starting my diet on Sunday. Why do I do that? I say it out loud because it holds me accountable to it more. What's if I even do something? I commit. I pay money to start a subscription with a diet, with a whole nutrition package, whatever it is, starting on Sunday. I'll keep doing more, right? When it comes to food specifically, the more it is out there in the real world, the more it's going to be an actual definitive change of the ending of eating, if you will. Right? So that's why we say that there's going to be different types of Hesach Hadas. There's going to be just mentally deciding I'm done eating, verbally saying I'm done eating, I am now done with these cookies. Right? Or actually doing something like pushing away the plate or cleaning up or whatever it is, and obviously a whole different type of Hesach Hadas. We're gonna get into that in a moment. But for now, keep going. Number 2.
Number 2, the type of eating. Was one eating a snack or a fixed meal? Certainly, one is more likely to continue eating during a fixed meal than during a snack.
You're sitting in the middle of breakfast. All of you are sitting here, right? Marilyn said she's done eating. I'm not sure the Chachamim would say it's so simple that she's done eating. You're still sitting at the meal. This is the breakfast meal. You're still sitting here. You've said you're done now. It's a pretty big deal because you threw out your plate, etc., right? But in theory, you could still be sitting at this meal and decide to have some more. And that's not as big a deal as a snack where you had a little peach, right? And then you said you're done. And then you have another peach. That could be a separate snack. As opposed to a meal, it's one meal. Does that make sense? Okay, and number 3, finally, special circumstances.
Special circumstances. Was one eating alone or was he a guest at another's home? As we have previously seen, a guest has limited control over his meal.
So as we've seen with a guest, almost always we say that the das, the intention of the guest goes based on the intention of the host. Why? Because he's not even in control of his own food and his own situation, so therefore he's going to go based on the host. And again, that's the same special circumstance we've had in the past. Okay, what I'd like to do is go through some of these, not all of them. We're going to try not to make it exhaustive, because obviously these things can get all the way, we can go down rabbit holes with each one. But let's get started, Hanarina, with the type of Hesach Hadas. So as we said, there's going to be more definitive and less definitive. It's not all just because you decided you're done eating. Let's see.
The effect of a Hesach Hadas varies in relation to the amount of resolve one demonstrates. Well,
see, it's like a diet. How much resolve do you Go ahead.
While certain manifestations of Hesach Hadas may demonstrate beyond doubt that one no longer plans to eat, other manifestations may be less definitive and leave one's resolve in question. The different types of Hesach Hadas are as follows.
Number 1.
A definitive Hesach Hadas. Hesach Hadas, which is manifested by conclusive action or words, is considered a definitive Hesach Hadas. The following are examples of a definitive Hesach Hadas. Preparation for Birkat Hanehenin. One who washes mayim akromim, the customary washing of hands before Birkat Hanehenin, starts to lead the Birkat Hanehenin by declaring, Rabosai Nevarech, or simply takes a cup of wine into his hand to lead the Birkat Hanehenin, expresses a clear Hesach Hasadas. In each of these cases, all authorities agree that one may not continue eating without repeating the bracha.
Okay, I need to say something. Yeah. At the beginning of benching, right, when we do the grace of the meals, you're sitting at breakfast, everybody washed, right? There is a thing that we do called the zimun. Zimun means the call to benching. Yes, where one person says Rabotai Nevarech or Rabosai Mirvel benching, right? And then we start benching. It should be known that even though we today we turn everything halachic into like an official process of how we do it, but that doesn't have to be the official one. If we're sitting here having breakfast, and Alex is done and he's got to go, he's the first one who's got to go, which often happens, and Alex says, "Everybody ready to bench? Should we bench?" Even though he hasn't said the official words of Bosa Mirval and bench, it still counts. He's already made a verbal decision, and everybody like nodded, everybody looked around, and then we decide we're going to have more food. This has been a very definitive Hesach Hadas. Alex created by all of us a Hesach Hadas. Why? Because he said, let's start benching. We're moving on. We're moving on to the next step. So even though we haven't actually benched yet, that actually is a big deal. For sure, if he says, Rabosai Mirvel benching, and then we all say, Yeh shame, and then we move, right, that for sure is already a definitive, even not benching, right, we haven't even gotten into it, I hinted to this at the beginning, but benching, obviously, if you bench already, you've made not just made an active decision in your head, and not just a verbal decision, but you've actually done something. You've benched, you finished benching. So that obviously ends whatever it is, snack or meal, whatever bracha it is that you made. right? But even in a case where you just expressed an intention to bench, that is the same idea. That's what he's saying. Okay, everybody here with me? Everybody understand? Okay.
Wait, I got a question.
Yeah.
Say he decides, like, so let's bench,
Mm-hmm.
and people are still eating.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, say they don't all, it's not a unanimous.
Oh, yeah. If it's not a decision, that's fine. People can decide to be separate from that benching. You're allowed to do that. You can be part of the zimun and not continue. But assuming he says, should we bench now? And everybody says, yeah, let's do it. It's time to go, whatever.
Or those who say, let's do it.
Yeah, those are part of, that would be part, they're all part of that ending, that mental ending of the meal. And then they would be required a new bracha if they want to continue eating. Whereas you, let's say, if you had just sat down and you were late to the meal, and you say, sure, go ahead, I'm going to continue eating. Yeah. That obviously you're not ending your bracha.
Another good scenario would be everybody benches and then someone brings out dessert.
Okay, so I was going to say that. The reason I didn't say it is because of what was mentioned last week, which is dessert is always requires a separate bracha. We spoke about it last week. Okay.
Had I been here, right?
I didn't say it, you said it. Okay. Recital of bracha acharona. So here, this part is obvious. Who's reading? Marilyn, go ahead. B.
Recital of bracha acharona. One who decides to eat no more, who thinks there is no more to eat, and therefore recites bracha acharona, has effected a clear hesach hadas, and must repeat the bracha if he decides to eat again. It is improper to recite bracha acharona if one plans to continue eating. Nevertheless, in the opinion of some authorities, one who does not recite a bracha acharona with the intention of resuming eating afterwards must repeat the bracha when he actually resumes eating.
Okay, so I think this part we mentioned already. It's a very obvious one. Benching itself, it's a bracha acharona. The whole point of it is to end the meal, right? So then after you need to make a new bracha. Okay, we have discussed last week that a change in hesach hadas is not just saying that you're ending the meal. It can also be time or place. So let's start with place. Anna, you can read first, please. C.
Leaving the place of eating. One who decides to eat no more and in addition leaves this place of eating must certainly recite a new bracha if he decides to eat further. Most authorities agree that this is an absolute hesach hadas.
Okay, so leaving a location, also now there's, let me see section B2 below, that there can be a change of place even if you're in the same place. We're going to see in a second. But before we get to it, leaving the location usually is described as the new, meaning if you're sitting here and then you get up for a second to get a drink of water, you come back and Alex, in typical Alex fashion, takes my spot, and then I got to sit in this chair, right? That's not called a change of location. Usually a change of location is if you can still see the old location, that's the same location. So if you're in this room, anywhere in this room, it can be considered the same location. That makes sense? By the way, the same thing is true for benching. You're supposed to bench in the same place. You don't have to be in the same chair. Obviously, if you could do the same chair, is the best. But if you can't do the same chair, you just move to a different chair, and that's fine.
What if you go into a place, if you can see, like from you leave your dining table and you go into the living room and you sit down, but you can see the dining table?
Yes, that would be considered the same place. Assuming that the other types of hesach hadas don't apply, which is like you decided that you're done eating. So that's where that would get a little complicated. Like if you were sitting at the dining room table eating, and then you decided you're done eating, you say, I'm done eating, you get up, and you sit down on the couch, then that change of location, it's not so much about the change of location as much as it is the fact that you actively decided you're done eating. Does that make sense? But let's say you're in the middle of eating and you say, I'm just going to the couch, sit down for a minute or two, and then I'm going to come back for the next course, let's say. Yeah. Then you sit down and you come back. That's fine. Or let's say a friend comes and you get up, you go to the door to go talk to them. They come for a little visit. 5 minutes, you talk to them at the door and you go back to sit down and continue eating. That can be considered the same meal. Again, we're going to see time is going to be a factor too. We haven't gotten to that yet, but time is also going to be a factor. Okay, let's keep going. And you just read for us about leaving the place of eating. Yes? Joe, if you can continue, please. We're on page 178. 2. A simple hesach hadas.
Simple hesach hadas.
No, Joe.
Oh, you want me?
Yeah, let's keep going. Around the table, give everybody a chance.
One who during the course of a fixed meal mentally decides to eat no more, or one who remarks, let us recite a bracha acharona, let us recite Birkat Hamazon, or, quote, give us a cup of wine for Birkat Hamazon, has affected a simple hesach hadas. In each of these cases, the sincerity of his resolve is questionable. Thus, the poskim disagree as to the necessity of a new bracha.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this can get a little iffy, right? If it's just mental, if it's just, don't forget to make a bracha achrona. Let's make a bracha achrona. It's not exactly, is everybody ready to bench? Are we done eating? It's not a comment like that. That can get a little bit complicated. So I don't know if we're really going to get into the weeds on that one. Okay. Special types of Pesach Hadas. I'll go through these ones really briefly. If you daven during a meal, right? So we discussed this. What if, like, let's say you're sitting at the Kiddush on Shabbos here. And there's always mincha afterwards, right? But we need to do mincha because, let's say, somebody's got to go and we're not going to have a minyan anymore, so we'll get daven mincha, but we really want to continue eating. Can you do that? Does davening automatically interrupt a meal? The answer is, one who leaves the table in order to recite his tefillah during the course of a meal need not repeat a bracha when he returns to his meal. Although optimally it might be preferable not to go to shul during a meal unless someone remains at the table. One who does so is not required to repeat his bracha upon returning, provided that he plans to continue eating. One who did go to shul during a bread meal should repeat the Netilas Yadayim without a bracha, since perhaps the cleanliness of his hands was not maintained. Okay, so notwithstanding that last point, which is that maybe you should wash your hands again, the point he's making is davening does not necessarily constitute an interruption. If you were planning to continue eating, that's fine. He also added something else, which we haven't spoken yet about at length, but I'll just mention it briefly. If you're considered part of a meal together with a whole bunch of other people, those other people can help keep the meal for you. So let's say we're 10 people, for example, let's say women. We're going to daven mincha in the library. The women are going to stay here, and then afterwards we all plan to continue eating. For whatever reason, it's a big celebration, it's a bar mitzvah, it's a sheva brachos, there's something going on, it's a big meal, and the kiddush, but there's only 10 men, and we got one or two of them need to leave, so we're going to daven mincha. So we all get up to go daven mincha, but some of the women stay at the table. Or men, if that's how it works. Let's say some of them are already daven, whatever it is. So if they're staying at the table, they're holding the meal for the rest of us. Does that make sense? It's like a weird, strange thing. Because we were all eating together, they're still sitting there, they're waiting for us to come back from mincha to continue eating. So again, there's that. It all has to do with intention, that it's holding the intention. So now let's go to this other example. What about sleeping? Right? What if you have this happens to people, Shabbos afternoon after a big challenge, right? Not that Alex will know anything about this. Poskim distinguish between sleeping and napping during a meal. Sleeping, as pertains to this halacha, is defined as lying on a bed. If you get up, go to your bed, and you say, don't worry, I'm continuing to eat when I get back. You take a 3-hour shluf, right? Okay. Sleeping is considered...
Who would ever do that?
Sleeping is considered an interruption of the meal, obviously, right? Whereas napping is not, which is interesting. So normally, one who interrupts a meal to lay on a bed intends to sleep and consequently has ended his meal. Even if he didn't make a bracha achrona, if he left his meal, went to go nap in a bed, right? Went to go take a shluf in a bed. That's considered an interruption. Naturally, one who interrupts him to lay on his bed intends to sleep because he has ended his meal. If he wishes to resume eating upon waking, a new bracha is required. One who naps while in a sitting position normally did not intentionally go to sleep, but was unwillingly overcome by sleep. You wouldn't know anything about that. Okay.
Like if you're sitting,
Yeah.
sort of just like pass out for a few minutes.
Yeah, and then keep
That's
going.
considered a nap.
I've never seen that happen.
Yeah, you're joking, right? Yeah. Of course, all the time, especially in the middle of a good solid meal.
Look, there's a footnote.
It says,
after you had the Hanukkah,
L'chaim, yeah.
after you had the Hanukkah soup with melatonin in it,
Yeah.
that's the exception.
Yeah, but then it also says here, if your name is Alex Fisher, then you should always make a new bracha because you're... okay. Therefore, the sleep is not considered an interruption of the meal regardless of its length. And a new bracha is not necessary. So in other words, napping at the table because the food has gotten to you or whatever it is, that's not the issue. However, if one wishes to continue eating bread, he must be repeating Netilas Yadayim with that bracha. As we said, okay, so I want to talk briefly about what he's talking about here with Netilas Yadayim. Netilas Yadayim, we often just associate with the meal. Oh, before you eat, you wash your hands for bread, you make a bracha on Netilas Yadayim, then you eat, and then at the end, you bench. Right? That's usually the way we associate with it. But actually, the washing of the hands and making a bracha are two completely separate things. Making the bracha is thanking Hashem before you're going to eat. So if in the middle you took a little nap, right, and then you kept going, that's fine. That didn't interrupt that. But when it comes to hands, washing hands, it's a whole different thing going on over here. There's a halachic concept called Yadayim Askaniotim, which means that hands are busy. Hands are busy. Hands go to all sorts of places naturally. I don't know if you know this, but if in the middle of davening, for example, you scratch your head in a place where your head is usually covered, or in a place where like you get to the roots of your hair, etc., or if you stick your hand into your shirt and you give yourself a scratch on some part of your body that's usually covered, you have to wash your hands. So that's a whole separate thing that we're worried about here. And when you fall asleep, even if it's only for 5-10 minutes, we don't know where your hands went. Because you weren't conscious, so therefore you weren't consciously aware of your hands, that's why you would need to wash your hands again. I'm not going to make a new bracha, but that's, okay, I want to give a little bit of context to that. Okay, let's finish off the last thing. Interrupting of eating for a long period. Alex, you can read first, please. This last one, and then we're going to call it a day.
C. Interruptions of eating for a long period. One who interrupts eating or drinking for a long period of time, even all day, need not repent or repeat the bracha if in the course of that time he never decided to stop eating.
Okay, so it could be a long time, and it can even be all day, but you don't need to make a new bracha if in the course of that time he never decided to stop eating. Okay, there's a lot going on over here.
That's like grazing, right?
That's like grazing,
Like
exactly.
the person who's on a diet and he's trying to lose weight and he just kind of grazes throughout the day.
Yeah, there's a lot more going on there, and I'm not going to talk about it now. We're going to talk about it next week.
Next week, you mean I gotta wait? It's a
Dun, 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 dun.
cliffhanger?
Dun, 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 dun. Next week we're going to talk about a change of place and a change of time. Okay, because there is a difference. Okay, but as we're going to definitely need to talk about the grazer. We're going to keep the grazer in mind. And by the way, that becomes very relevant to Pesach. I know a lot of people like to use that for Pesach. Basically, they will wash on their matzah at the beginning of the day, and they're going to be out, let's say, at an amusement park with their kids, and they want to be able to continue eating matzah. So you could keep that bracha going all day. But as we're going to see, you're going to have to do certain things in order to keep your intention with you, such as, for example, eat something within every 72 minutes, etc. There you go. I gave you a little bit of a sneak peek.
I got a caveat.
In order to
that.
keep it going. Yes.
When I'm at the other shul,
Which other shul?
don't hold it against me.
Which other shul? What? What other shul is there besides
We have
shul?
a kiddush, right?
Yeah.
And then from there I go to another place for lunch. So once I say the bracha, I don't have to say it twice.
As long as you had in mind at the beginning. Yes, correct. So that's next week we're going to talk about the shinei makom, changing place.
I learned that there. I didn't learn that here.
Oh, well, we're teaching it next week here, so you better be here.
I gotta be here.
Okay, just making sure.
Yes.
I don't know why he likes to go to the west side. He thinks the shuls there are like more attractive or something. I don't know what it is. Must be a reason. I wonder what it is. Yes, Joe.
Oh, no, I was
okay.
actually waving.
Okay.
Somebody. Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us for a taste of thanks. We look forward to seeing you next week as we continue this
All
journey.
right, thank you for letting